You're welcome back. While we wait 1 minute for others to join those who are in, I saw Dr. Nkumbo was there also, Mungaela. Mwape, just a reminder that she can log back in a text. So welcome back. How was the first session, Tandy? Mwape, how was the first session? While we wait for 1 minute. Oh, Tandy is talking?
We're following, Pastor.
Okay, thanks. All right, let me then just dive right in because I think time is not with us. We can discuss other things after we go on. So like we were saying, we need to wake up to the truth because things are going to get a lot better. On this section, I was saying that we need to understand that this world, we need to fix this world. Mwape, don't forget to remind Dr. Vinkumba because she had wanted to listen to this. So to say that this world is the whole way to the world to come. We're not talking about heaven, like literal heaven in the sky. It's talking about this world as it's going to be when we fix it. This world is the preparation for the improvement of this world. In other words, I said it's going to get a lot better. So God, I want to take one side to explain what I'm trying to talk about. God used marriage to make us understand some of these things. And I want to explain something about marriage, which is very profound. Then it helps you understand, because the Bible says the husbands love your wives even as the truth loves the mind. And what does the truth does to the mind? It washes it to be conformed to its principles. So in any marriage, listen to me, this is very good also. This is very hard not to know. In any marriage, if I'm needy, if a husband is needy, the wife is needy, you are in trouble. I'll say that again. Please put your ears to your mics. In any marriage, if I'm needy, if the husband is needy, the wife is needy, you are in trouble. You either satisfy my need or get out of here. It's a nasty relationship. I'm 49 years, I'm speaking things I've seen and touched and which the truth has showed me. So it has to be better than that. Actually, the only time you get married, for those who want to get married, listen to me. The only time you get married is when you have no needs. Are you hearing that? The only time you get married is when you have no needs. As long as you feel needy, do not get married. That's what the Bible is trying to show us. I'm not talking my philosophy, this is the Bible philosophy. As long as you feel needy, do not get married. Don't inflict this on another person. It's not nice. Are we together? It's not nice. I'm needy. I want you to satisfy my needs. Please don't get married. Don't inflict that on another person. What you're saying is that I'm going to marry you and I'm going to dump you if when my needs are not satisfied. If you don't satisfy my need, then you are a failure. That's bad. Let's stop, you guys. See, God created the world in order to achieve a relationship. Things are going to get a lot better if you keep listening to these things I'm telling you. God created the world in order to achieve a relationship. He was God before that. You get me? So God created the world to achieve a relationship. Of course, he was still God before that, which means he was not needy. He didn't come into this world dumping his needs on us. His only need is to have you. The only need is you to have your partner. That's not needy, in fact. That's noble. Let me give you another practical scenario. I need to call my mother. Okay, go. Find the phone and call your mother. But if you say, my mother needs me to call her, everyone will lend you their phone because that's noble. So when you're doing something noble, everyone rallies around you. If you are getting married, you have to do it the way God did it. First, become perfect so that you have no needs to dump on another person. I hope this is making sense. When you don't want to be perfect anymore, it's time to get married. But you still want to get perfecter. If you want to get more perfect, don't get married. You are too selfish. You have no need. Let it go. So every relationship is a result of an attraction, of course. Remember, poor people need rich people. They need each other. A teacher and a pupil need each other, etc. But what makes marriage unique is not about things. It's beyond things. It's just us. Of course, the initial attraction is about things. I like your style. I like your humor. I like your maturity. I like your family. Oh, very good. Don't marry any of that. Marry the person. Then don't marry any of that about I like your humor. I like your. Of course, when you begin, that's the attraction. But don't marry any of that. Marry the person. So nothing about your spouse is more important than your spouse. Nothing about your spouse is more important than your spouse. I hope I'm using good English. But in business, that's not true. In business, you partner with someone who knows the business. If he doesn't know the business, is not important. In marriage, it's the opposite. Marriage means we. I say that again, marriage means we. Two human beings merging, not about anything. This is not happening in marriages because we don't teach. You know, these marriages are failing every day. I can see that people are going there with needs. It's not happening in marriages because we don't teach what marriage is. So I thought today, let me show you that this is, if you can make it in your marriage, then you can make it with God. Well, it's not happening. Marriages are failing because we're not teaching what marriage is. And it's a tragedy. So the purpose is to become one. So does that mean you're going to perfect each other, help each other, complete each other in your need? No, you are going to be one, not to remain two. I'm talking about marriage, not roommates. You become one, not two. You're not going to perfect each other. You marry a person, not what is around the person. That's marriage, not a roommate. Bottom line is if you are using another person for personal benefits, you are abusing them. No, my wife doesn't give the way I want. You are abusing her. My husband, you are abusing him. So I say that again. If you are using another person for personal benefits, you are abusing them. You don't marry somebody in order to gain something. Somebody is always more important than anything. That's why Isaiah says, we are going to lead you into a time where a person is more important than gold of offer, than material. Because remember, man was engineered in the image of God. Any man. So any statement that starts with, let me teach you something. Those who want to get married and those who are married. Any statement that starts with I can be is not. If you start a statement with I, it can't be good for a relationship. That's why the Bible talks of you are betrothed to me. Not I love you. So like in marriage counseling, what I do, let me show you some tips. In marriage counseling, I always ask one person, do you want to be better? Or do you want it to be better? I ask them both, do you want your relationship to be better when they come fighting? And the answer is always, yes, I want it to. Do you want your relationship to be better? Yes, I want it to. Then I say, go ahead and make it better. Go ahead and make it better. Now complaints come. But she, but he, but pastor, she. Well, stop complaining. You want to be right. Why? What kind of context is that? Is it a context? So the need to be right is one of those needs we have to get rid of. We are not asking you to sacrifice. I'm not saying sacrifice, no compromise. Just don't create needs. Merge, not compete. Merge, don't compete. So getting past our needs is so liberating, not sacrifice. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother. You know, men, your mother, you cannot be one with your mother and father. The Bible says you can only be one with your wife. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother. The only relationship which makes you one with another is marriage. So when you begin to understand these things, then you need also to begin what's happening in this world. It's not about how you feel. It's about what is right. Are we together? Sorry, I diverged, but does that make sense? Any questions? Any additions? I'm speaking a lot. Mwape, what's the time now? How many minutes do we have? Mwape?
We have about 20. We have about 21 minutes.
Awesome. So any questions? I want to talk about another thing which someone asked me. Then I can continue. If there are no questions, we can still go on. You know, there's so much things I need to talk to you guys, but you need to be ready to listen, okay? Did someone say something?
Yes, Rev. Yes. Can you come again on the statement where you said any statement that starts with I think you didn't complete that one. I wanted to hear how it ends.
Okay. So I said, any statement which starts with I cannot be good for a relationship. I love you. You know, people always say I love you because you bought them a Mercedes Benz. Honey, I love you. Or maybe because you did something nice. So what I suggest you look at it when you say I love you, it's better you say you I love. Because I is suggesting it's me first, you satisfied my need. Okay, the point I'm trying to make is that you don't go in marriage with needs. So a relationship has to start with the word you. It has to start with the other person. So there is a practical suggestion. It's just a practical suggestion from me. Don't say I love you. Rather say that you I love. It's you, not me. You know, you reach a level where what thrills you, Bram Tema, is to see your wife happy. Not you happy. No, when she's around, I just feel relaxed. She satisfies my need. Well, don't get married. Because you are going to be in a lot of trouble, because then it's not what God intended for marriage to be. Did I answer that? Leonard?
Yes.
I did?
Yes.
So what
Yes,
have you
you
learned?
did.
Summarize for us, since you're a married man, what have you learned from what I've said? Just 2 minutes before I move on to something I wanted to discuss today.
Okay, marriage is not about you per se, but it's the union of the two of you, that you become one when you are united, and the I in you should die. So it becomes one. It's we.
Yes.
I think that.
Yeah, if you want to tell your wife, you say, honey, you I love. That's the practical suggestion. Anyway, just by suggestion. So, any questions on this? I wanted to answer one question someone asked from the group. I think they are there. They are expecting me to say something on that. I didn't say anything about that, about Noah's flood. Any questions on this, or we will ask all the questions after maybe I'm done with everything? I just go ahead, and I know it will look like we have diverged to another lesson, but bear with me, someone needed to understand this. So they were asking a question. You talk about these, the Bible. Remember, the Bible is not a historical book. It's a practical book. It's not an historical book. It is a prophetic book. So, yeah, they were asking about that. So that one is very simple. I'll just answer it quickly, then we'll get back to what we're discussing, because what we're discussing today is very cardinal for us to understand what we're doing here. Because there's so much things to talk about, but we need people to be focused. That's why I say, if you think this is not for you, don't listen to it, because then it will just confuse you. That's why even Jesus Christ never talked about such things in public. You take the disciples in the mountain and tell them, now listen. In the public, you just talk about milk, simple things. So, my dear brother and sisters, Noah's flood was not worldwide. Please, let's understand those things. That's why the era of religion is that the idea of the flood mentioned in the Bible covered all the earth and drowned everybody on the earth, except Noah and his family, who escaped death by being in the ark. That's the story. So religion believes that when there is a lot of, religion believes that when practically there is a lot of evidence that the flood was not worldwide. And such beliefs destroy the faith of multitudes of people. And it has made atheists out of many people who would have been saved from their miseries. So that's what I'm telling you, with such talks in the world is going to get better. So if only these people were taught the truth, they would not be atheists or other religions. So this is due to mistranslation and misreading of the word. Like I tell you, the Bible is not historical. Even the flood is not historical. This is talking about, it's a lesson, it's an allegory. For example, let me just go through it quickly, and I'll have another audience with those who won't understand. In Genesis chapter 6, when you go back and read again, we read that God found the people so corrupt that he regretted that he had ever created them, and so he decided to wipe them up. by a flood and warned righteous Noah and told him to build a great big boat in which he and his family might find safety, where they could preserve a few of each kind of their animals. Then in chapter 7, it tells how, when you start from 6, then when you go to verse 7, it tells how Noah received the final warning that the time was now at hand and that he should move into the ark. Then it says, according to the King James Version, remember, in the Bible, there's a lot of mistranslation and misreading. So Genesis 7:10, I'll read from 7:10 quickly up to maybe 24. The Bible reads so that you have a glimpse of what's happening. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. 18, and the waters prevailed and they were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the earth, upon the face of the waters. Verse 19, and the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. Verse 20 is very cardinal. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. 21, and all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of beasts and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man. 24, and waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. Genesis 8:1 up to 5. And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made the wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. Verse 3, and the waters returned from off the earth continually, and after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated. Verse 4, and the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 7th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. Verse 5, and the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. So let's see what the translators had done to what Moses originally wrote. So translation problems. The King James Version says that the rain was upon the earth, and the waters increased greatly upon the earth, and no flesh died and moved upon the earth. Translation is wrong there, please. Remember Genesis 4:14. Let's go to Genesis 4:14. You will get the right translation. But of course, when you go to the original translations, you see it, but I can still use the Bible to help you understand that the translations were wrong. I've posted that one. Genesis 4 verse 14, the Bible says, behold, you see, this is Cain complaining. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth. God drove Cain from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. Question, did Cain climb in his rocket ship and take off from out to outer space? If you say the flood, Noah's flood was on the earth, the whole earth. So Cain also says, Lord, you have driven me out of the earth. Did Cain climb in his rocket ship, take off into outer space? Of course not. He was never driven from the face of the earth. He never said so. When you go to the original manuscript, he never said so. That's the King James translation, the English people who translated it. He never said so. Only remember, I told you Adam cannot teach you God. Only the translators said so. The word Cain used was Adama. When you go to the concordance, the Hebrew concordance, the word is Adama, A-D-A-M-A-H, meaning the ground. I can read it. I've opened the Google Docs. It's Adama. It says from its general redness, earth, ground, land. So God had told him that his farming would never be successful. That's why it says, you have taken me off the ground, because the ground gives you food. That's why you see, God, this is a lesson for another day. What God did to Cain, God had told him that his farming would never be successful. So Cain said, God has taken me off the ground. And you probably notice that many Caucasians, Cain's descendants, were not farmers. They own pawn shops, money lending institutions. They don't work on the ground. We'll talk about how that is cardinal, also is important in another lesson. In chapter 7, when Moses mentions earth, the Hebrew word is eret, E-R-E-T, meaning the land. You can go into the Hebrew translations or or use the concordance to show you. So the flood did not cover that. The flood did not cover the whole world. It covered the particular land where it covered. That is, it was a local flood that covered one particular local land, but not the whole earth. Again, notice that it specifies that 15 cubits did the waters prevail and the mountains were covered. Let's go to ancient mathematics. In ancient times, 2 different lengths of cubits were in use. Hebrews sacred cubit was 25 inch, and the common measurement was 25.8 inches. Therefore, the waters either rose above the tops of the mountains, of which it is speaking by either 25 feet 9 inches or 31 feet 3 inches, according to which cubit you use. If this meant that all the mountains on the earth were covered, the waters would have to cover Mount Everest. And remember, Mount Everest is 6 miles high. And where would and even if it covered Mount Everest, then where would the water have gone, which covered the whole earth after it subsided? But if the whole earth was covered by that much, the all nations on earth would have been eliminated. That's what we're saying. If the water covered the earth, and they say, yes, the whole world was eliminated. But let's go now to history, Bible history. So if all the earth was covered by that much of the water, then all the nations on earth would have been eliminated. But you look at the same time Noah's flood happened. In Babylon, Egypt, even Chinese history runs through this period without a break. When you read the Babylonian history, the Egyptian history, the Chinese history, it passes through this without a break. If you look at the Bible gives the date of Noah's flood as commencing in 2345 BC and ending in 2344 BC. In Lower Sumeria, later called Chaldea, where Abraham came from, which occupied the same plains of Shinar, to which Noah and family journeyed after the flood. The city of of the Chaldea was a leading city from about 2400 BC until 2285. The history ran through without being interrupted by the flood. And its history is not broken by any floods. Further, in the north, you see Babylon. Babylon was rising to power from about 2400 BC on and reached its greater height of civilization under its greatest king, Hammurabi, who lived at the same time with the Hebrew patriarch Abraham. Hammurabi lived at the same time as Abraham, about 2250 BC. And again, there is no break in this history due to the flood. It's just pure mistranslation. Even reasonably, when you look at the Chinese history, you need to learn the earth for you to understand these things. Reasonably accurate history of China begins nearly 3000 before Christ. The Sima, the historic record of China, shows that King Yao, if you have studied Chinese history, you know about King Yao, came to the throne in 2356 BC, 11 years before the start of Noah's flood, and he ruled China for many years after the flood. During the reign of King Yao, yes, the Sima reports that the Yangtze River, which drains mountains under the Great Basin in Sichuan province, and had an excessive flood. The Yangtze River had excessive floods for 3 generations, 30 years. Here again, there was no break in history. The Chinese nation was not wiped out. Therefore, the Bible is correct in stating that the floods covered only Eret, the earth, the land. If you read, there's something I got from the books of history of China. It says, King Yao himself says that it was during, he reports about the flood. It was during the reign of Emperor Yao that the great flood began. A flood so vast that no part of Yao territory was spared, and both the Yellow River and the Yangtze Valley flooded. The alleged nature of the flood is shown in the following quote. So it's quoted somebody saying it. Like endless boiling water, the flood is pouring forth destruction, boundless and overwhelming. It overtops hills and mountains, rising and ever rising. It threatens the very heaven. How the people must be groaning and suffering. And then he says,
so we have less than 10 minutes for the meeting to end. We have about 7 minutes.
Okay, so these floods went for 3 decades. So you begin to understand these things. Is it making sense? The problem was people were being destructive of their life on the earth. I think I talked about this a long time ago. People were being destructive of the life on earth. So the flood cleansed the earth. Death means let's start all over again. God is not a punisher. We'll talk about this as we go on. What ended was the ugliness of the flesh. It's an allegory. The world settled down into the norm. After that, just like after the 6,000 days of the devil's rule, we're going to settle down into the norm. The flood was cleansing, was forgiving. We become normal after the chaos. That's how God created the world. First there was darkness, then there was the day. So the flood benefited life. I think I've talked too much. In this other, is it 5 minutes? We can have people say something, appreciate or ask questions. We continue next week. Any questions? Any additions? Someone want to say something? This is the time. Lumbuka, say something. What have you learned?
I have a question, Rev.
Okay,
Just
Leonard.
a quick one.
Yes.
Yes. Is there a connection of the 40 days and 40 nights of rain to the fasting of Jesus for 40 days and 40 nights?
Yes, all those, yes, exactly. All those have everything to do with the cleansing. We will discuss that as we go on. Yes, there is a connection. So like I said, it's an allegory. So if someone wants to say something, Leonard, after your question, do you have anything to say?
No, nothing.
Maybe I can just appreciate the aspect you've talked about of the history, because I think we've been made to believe that the beginning of the earth was the beginning of the Adamic phase, but to think that I mean, what you've endeavored to talk about the Chinese history, and to think that Noah's flood was not a literal concept of what we thought, that the whole world was wiped out. I think for me, it's quite profound to learn that today, because since time that we were given Bible stories growing up, we've always thought that Noah's flood meant that the entire earth or the firmament, like you taught us last time, was wiped out. So that is quite profound. And I think I would love to go through the recording a second time when it's available, just to really get the whole lesson a second time. Yeah.
Thank you, Lumbuka. Who else? Mutinta, you want to say something? Wadia, you know, there's no stranger here. All of you have come to learn. Wadia, do you want to say something? Appreciate or add or ask questions? We need to know that people are listening. Wadia? Mungaela, you want to say something? Mungaela? Tandy, you want to say something? Somebody, anybody? Or has it been understood? Mungaela, can you hear me?
I think she should be having maybe network challenges.
Pastor, thank you very much. I think just like Lumbuka said, I think this was insightful, the concept, the explanation of Noah and the flood. And I think basically what you're saying is to align these different histories, the Chinese history and whatnot, be nice to know where it falls in. And like you mentioned, for us to appreciate that there was no interruption in other civilizations at the same time. Yes. So yeah, I think that was useful. I think another one that was useful was your explanation on marriage. I think the essence, like you said, instead of, you may use the word I, this is how I would take it, is you may use the word I, but it's depending the context in which you're using it. But the essence is to understand that you don't come into a marriage to focus on you, and you don't come into the marriage looking for expectation, your needs to be met, but you come in when you are full and you're not in need, and then that you align. But I think the bigger question for me is, what if there's a mismatch between you understanding you don't come in with needs and your partner has a different understanding? And so I think, yeah, I think how do you feed off of each other in such a situation? So yeah, those are the questions I'm coming with, but I know you can't cover it in this session.
I'll cover it again. Yeah. I've taken note. I think we're meaning with 1 minute, but I'll cover it again. That question, Crash, was also asked, remember? Moses, whatever, was also faced with the same situation about marriage. Anybody else? Wadia? Mwape? You may close.
Just an appreciation. Just an appreciation. I think I really like the fact that this Zoom platform actually gives us an opportunity to be more realistic. And even when it comes to belief,